idea for all this really came from a dream?
Yes, it did.
Good evening and welcome to Nox Mente. Tonight's guest is the Black Stag Shaman. He's dark, he's mysterious, he's a shaman. The Black Stag Shaman. Welcome to the show, sir.
Thank you so much for having me. This is awesome.
Welcome aboard. I'm thrilled. Of course, I know who you are behind your shamanic mask. And I'm super thrilled that you're with us tonight. I have been trying to get you on, for a little while, and I'm glad that you have come to Nox Mente to dream big with us.
Yeah, thank you. This is this is my first kind of podcast doing this with this type of topic. So it's pretty cool to be here. I'm really excited to see what we're
Yeah.
gonna get into tonight. It's gonna be cool.
Yes, the dream waters. And we're really it's small and underground for you, but this is cool. So I also want to refer people to what you've got set up in it's YouTube land, right? You've got all your folky stuff going on under this title, which is awesome. The Black Stag. What's your YouTube channel?
Yeah, Black Stag Shaman.
Shaman. And don't you have an Instagram with that?
Yes, Instagram as well. Yeah.
Yeah, it's cool. I've been very much enjoying all the folkish stuff.
Cool.
It's
Thank
right
you.
up my alley. So
Cool. Great.
with that said, let's dive into.
And I'll put those links into the description before the show's over. Sure.
Great.
So give us a little idea of the world you grew up in when you were small, like the earliest things you can recall.
Well, I grew up in a really small area of rural Canada, and on the East Coast, actually. And we there wasn't a whole lot. I mean, I didn't grow up with a lot of money. It was a really mild, poor upbringing, really. But there was a lot of love in the house, and actually a lot of superstition as well. I mean, my parents worried, like, about everything, and like, with what I got into later in life, like with all this spiritual, shamanism and all that stuff. I mean, there was nothing like that growing up. I didn't grow up in a Catholic house, like a very strict Catholic or Christian house, but I was Roman Catholic. I was raised Roman Catholic, and um, you know, ended up breaking away from that side and moved more towards paganism. My kind of like my style of paganism. I don't adhere to anything strictly right now, but I'm kind of all over the map. But growing up when I was a kid, yeah, it's so strange too, because I was a really really shy kid. um Everything scared me. I was always afraid of everything, and I think that's why when I got a little bit older, I kind of started, and the internet came around, I started researching as much as I could, um, just to try to ease those fears, and to step out of that ignorance that I grew up in, and try to become a little more enlightened. And thankfully, because it was a different world, and it was kind of a scary place. I mean, it just felt like everything and it was kind of like a negative. Although, like I said, I grew up in a house of love. It was kind of a negative kind of a world. That there was cults everywhere that were out to get me, and like, it was a strange place. It was a strange little place, but I'm really happy with where I am right now. So
When you say cults, do you mean like churches?
yeah, well, yeah, like back in the '80s. I was born in '84, so
Mm-hmm.
like the '80s. There seemed to be a lot of talk on TV and everything about cults coming up, and um, people joining cults, and either suicides, and uh, which, well,
Well, it
maybe
was a
some
satanic
witchcraft,
panic days too.
exactly,
Yeah.
satanic, and all that stuff, and yeah, so it was like that's the kind of that's the aura of like my childhood. It was like it was kind of it was really dark and on that side, and um,
Yeah, no, I totally get it.
it jumped into that.
That's the time I started playing D&D
There you go.
to combat that evil.
Mm,
Yes, empower yourself.
yeah, exactly.
What was your relationship with the natural world? Of course, you're in Canada, and I do
Mm,
think, unless you're in Montreal or something, I think all Canadians have such a healthy, or at least have a relationship with big nature. Did you?
yeah. Yeah, definitely. I mean, like I said, I live in a very, very small town. So, we were always outside doing things, but like lived right next to the ocean. So, was always at the beach doing stuff like that. But um, I was a not too outdoorsy at the time. I mean, I am now more so, but um, I kind of like I went off a lot of intuition um, in regards to spirituality. I mean, like I gravitated towards Christianity because that's where I grew up, and that's kind of the world I lived in. But I still used my intuition at a young age to kind of break out of it, which doesn't really make sense. But to give you an example, um, I'm not sure if this is the answer to the question you were asking, but like I when I prayed at night, I mean, we were taught your prayers, like the Our Father and Holy
Mm-hmm.
Mary, Hail Mary, and all that stuff, and I said those prayers, but then after was to me is when the real prayer began. Those were just like things you had to say.
Mm-hmm.
They didn't really mean a whole lot. And afterwards, I instinctively like spoke to the Creator. I used to pray to the Creator, which is not something I was taught, and that was something that I always think about. That I'm like, where did that come from? Because it wasn't something that was instilled in me. It was just something that I kind of picked up myself, and uh it was kind of really the really beginning of like the um intuitive spiritual side of my life that really has taken on a whole nother level, in regards to intuition and symbology and everything. It's been a really cool ride, I have to
I
say.
like that you were able to push through uh, the really the kind of indoctrination of organized religion, and find your way to a personal connection with w- you know with the spiritual world around you, and
Mm,
however that formed for you.
hmm
It's a beautiful thing, and it's a natural thing that, when left alone, I think most people find it. We find our own voice, and in that, you know. So when you say that, how would your prayers look when you'd get past the mundane churchy prayer that you had
yeah.
to say, and then you would get into your interaction with creator, or this deeper spiritual energy that you were
Yep.
tapping into?
Yeah, it was more after those prayers. It was about being thankful, for what I had, even though I didn't have very much. Um, it was positive. I was thankful for parents and my brothers and all that good stuff, as you normally would say. But it was for protection. I always felt protected as a child, which is weird too, because I was always so scared. But I always felt like I used to pray for. I know this sounds weird, but I used to pray for an orb of protection uh, to be around me all the time, and it seems like it worked in many ways. But yeah, it
Did you have
was.
a visualization of that?
It's an interesting choice of things to pick as a child. I
No,
mean,
it really is. I agree. And looking back on it, it just it felt. It's one of those things. Like I said, that's why I bring it back to intuition. It's because it was like it was kind of visual, but it was like it was a spiritual. It's just what I felt. I don't know. It's hard. It's really hard to put into words um, because it's an internal thing that it's an internal prayer that you kind of saw and spoke at the same time in your head. So it's really hard to put into words. Sorry.
So in this period, so also just foundational stuff, how many siblings do you have?
Two brothers,
So it's
older.
three boys. Oh, and you were the youngest.
Yeah, and they were like a lot older than me. So
So you got some freedom.
yeah, I did have a lot. Yeah, I did have freedom. Definitely had freedom. A little bit too much freedom sometimes. I mean, there
Well,
was a
doesn't it
oh,
always
there
seem like
was
the youngest gets the most freedom? And
yeah, yeah. Oh, that makes sense. Well, I mean, after the first two, the parents are like, "Yeah, do whatever you want to
I know, right? It's
do."
always like the worst on the oldest.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. And yeah, like with parents being strict and stuff like that. But I mean, it's not. It wasn't good in a lot of ways too, because I mean, I was exposed to a lot of things that I shouldn't have been exposed to as a child. I mean, in regards to like my older brothers being able to watch a lot of stuff that I shouldn't have been. Like for example, I remember I was 6 years old or something, and The Exorcist being on, which I had nightmares for years about The Exorcist, and like there's a lot of scary movies and a lot of other things that I shouldn't have saw and, and I wish I didn't see. But these are things that, like I said, later in life that um, is a part of all our journeys. I mean, we have to face a lot of childhood stuff that you know uh, we have to look at where we came from and question our beliefs and look at our fears and why we believe what we believe and think what we think and question if that's um, if it's accurate and if it's right and that's what I did. I was, like I said, I was lucky enough. I mean, I'm mid 30s right now, and I feel like, I mean, it's a journey, but I feel like I'm past the majority of like of all the crap that I had to go through when I was young, which is the hard part, I think, for a lot of people, because a lot of people can't get past it. Is you can't A lot of people can't rationalize a lot of the things that they went through or witnessed, and some people had good lives, I guess, and I'm not sure how many people would say that, but not good lives. But I mean, like I said, I did have a good life. It's just there was a lot of things. Like I said, I was a really nervous child, really shy. So I mean, I had a lot of fear over a lot of things, and I had to work on that a lot when I got older.
What are the things back then that made you such a nervous child, and what were
I,
some of the fear things you were having fears over?
it was just the way I was. I was just naturally withdrawn. Like I didn't like new people. I didn't have a lot of friends, um, and it was just I can't explain why. It's just the way I was as a kid, and it could have stemmed back further to something else, but I'm not aware of. But I don't know. But psychologically, I mean. Um,
so you
but
were a weird kid. So,
Yeah, yeah, definitely. Yeah,
yeah,
well, not weird, just antisocial more so than anything.
yeah.
Not the guy who would have been out front, trying to make everyone laugh and all that stuff at school.
Mm.
Yeah.
Definitely not.
Well, Weird's our tribe. I call WYRD.
Yeah,
The weird kids we
yeah,
love.
yeah,
Did
exactly.
you have like typical fears of things like the dark and under the bed, the closet, kind of those kinds of
Yeah,
things?
yeah, definitely. My well, for example, well, for a good example is my brother had a Freddy Krueger poster on his wall, a bedroom behind his bedroom door, and that's the first thing I thought of when I went to bed at night. I just, you know, I was just petrified. But I mean, and I had really strict parents too, so like they weren't the ones to, if I was like crying because I was scared, they're like, "You're gonna go to bed, or you're gonna get a smack," you know, something like that. So I had no choice but to get over something. But yeah, I remember a lot of those nights holding the blanket up to my face because I was scared to see what was gonna walk through the closet or walk through the door or from under the bed.
Mm. Did you have any? Okay, so back there with all this, was there anything kind of supernatural going? So obviously, there's a lot of stuff churning here, and then
Hmm.
with media and the stuff that's going on at the time, and I mean, this was when I think like all kinds of stuff was coming forward at that particular time that was just wild, not just the satanic panic, but then there
Hmm.
was all this are we alone in the universe stuff. And did any of that inform some of this nervousness?
Yeah, I mean, overall, I mean, there was just because of the time. I mean, there was just, and where I lived, there was just not a lot of information. There was a ton of ignorance about so much stuff. I mean, a lot of stories, a lot of, like it was kind of like folk stories and stuff about the area where I lived, and you'd overhear things of parents or older brothers telling stories about somebody who got killed, not far away or something like that. And like there's stories of my grandmother, like she would tell stories about, I don't know if you know of the term tokens. Have you ever heard of tokens? But
Fill us in.
well, I believe you can find this term online, but a token would be like a token of death. So
Oh yes,
like a door slamming,
yes,
or
yes.
hearing something out of the blue, like something that you it's just a mystery of why you heard it or why it's there or what you heard. Anyway, like there's stories of that. And like my my grandmother used to tell a story that when she was young, she had to walk past a graveyard to get home, and she one night, um, there was a man on a horse walked up uh, to pass her, and he didn't have a head. So
Oh.
yeah, so I mean, like these were the stories that we used to hear when we were young, and it was, like I said, being in a small area of the size, it's like everything felt creepy in that world because I was so small and very shy and um, to myself, so the whole world felt like it was out to get me somehow.
Oh
Something,
yeah,
but
when people don't understand when we're talking small town Eastern Canada,
mm,
I mean, it's really remote. I understand because I'm a northern person and
mm.
have had a lot of experience in remote small town, in places similar, and they really are cut off. So
Oh, it was. Oh, I mean, we used to get music. Oh, I'm sorry about that. You're gonna
no
hear some beeps
problem.
in the background. I don't know if you can hear it. I'm in my van right now. Sorry. It's still cold here. Like I turned it off. I'm like I'm freezing.
Oh,
But
Canada.
right, exactly. But yeah, I mean, we used to get pop music like, geez, 6 months after everybody else. Like it was, it was a strange little place we lived in. We used to get a lot of things a lot later, and just really secluded. Not totally secluded, but secluded enough that you kind of felt disconnected from the rest of the world, definitely.
How were your so back here early in this early setting, what was your relationship with dreaming and the unseen world?
Um, Now I do have one experience that happened, and this is not a dream, but the experience that happened to me um, when I was probably in grade two, from my memory, one or two. I remember sitting. I was in the front row of my class, and I felt all of a sudden this rush of energy, um, of like euphoric energy, uh, come over me, and it was strange. I remember it to this day, and it never happened to that extent afterwards. It did happen like every now and then, but it was never to that extent. And it felt like it was in euphoria. It was the oddest thing and the oddest place to happen. I really never understood it, but I kind of felt like I was special. That's the feeling that came out of it. It it was like, it was almost like somebody, an angel putting its arms around me saying, you know, you're gonna be okay. It's like
Hmm.
it was really strange. Um, After that, actually, I became a little more religious as a child, if that makes sense. But
You were
um,
12 when that happened?
no, I was in grade one or grade two, so that was probably I was probably what, 7 or 8? No, probably 6 or 7 when that happened.
And that made you more religious?
Yeah, I mean, I just no, like more spiritual. I mean, I think that it was kind of like a gateway to a little bit more spirituality, and I didn't know which way to take it. So I think, and again, I think that might have been around the same time that I started praying the way I did.
Mm.
So it's probably connected. Um, I just never put that together before until now, actually. But but yeah.
Welcome to
So
Nox Mente.
yeah, really, there you go. Too funny. But um, but yeah, that was a really, it had an impact on me. And let me see, from dreams. There was nothing that I can remember, like one dream that I had, but it wasn't really anything that. It was more of a frightful, like fearful dream that I had. It was nothing, uh, that felt like there was anything special. It was just a dream that I always remembered. That was kind of odd. That, but it's yeah. That was mainly, that was the main spiritual event that happened. Was probably in that class that time. And again, like, I never did see anything. I always wanted to see something. I was always interested in, like ghosts, and like I said, it was part of my upbringing. But ghosts and, anybody who is psychic or, uh, you know, it's psycho, like that, spirituality, um, that world.
Hmm.
I really liked. I was drawn to it. It's probably because I'm a Scorpio, but
Oh, yes, we get that out of the way.
mm.
Absolutely. Scorpios love Scorpios swim in those waters. What about this
Yeah.
this dream you're kind of alluding to that was a darker dream of your
Yeah, it was an odd dream. It was a dream. I'll just go into. I'll just. It won't make sense to anybody, but it'll tell you what it is anyway. Um, I was basically in bed. This was my dream, and I wanted to. Well, I was afraid because there were two arms, reaching out from underneath my dresser, and they were striped, so they were green and red striped arms. And this, whatever this thing was speaking to me, and I don't know what it was saying, but it was speaking, and its hand, when you talk with your hands, if you ever seen anyone talk with
Yeah,
their hands.
I'm
Gesticulation,
one of
it's
those
called.
people.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's an
Yeah,
Italian
exactly.
thing. It's Italian.
Exactly. So that's what it was doing. That's what it was doing. It was, I couldn't see a face, I couldn't see anything else. It was just two arms from underneath. And I was like, I was probably only like 6 or 7 when that happened. So um maybe younger. So I always remember that dream. I was afraid, and I wanted to wake up, or I wanted to get call from my mom, but I was just too afraid. So I was just always a dream that, and this, whatever this thing was, is like, it didn't feel like it was going to come out and kill me or anything. It was just there, and it was just, I guess it was just kind of freaky, 'cause it was it's just strange. It's a strange thing to happen. But that was a dream that I always kind of remembered, and I thought it was odd. It is an odd dream, and I'm not really sure what it meant, but to this day.
It is interesting, but I have it's not like it's singular, and with what you've said also it kind of fits in when you were, I think it definitely fits into the person you're telling us, that you remember being.
Mm.
So when you were young also, what was what you can remember of it now, you can move forward, in time,
Hmm.
what the dream scape looked like for you. And what I mean by that is the particulars, black and white, where you sensate, smell, touch, all that stuff.
Mm. No, there was no, that I can remember. There was no smell. Um, or any sensation. There was color, because I remember it was a brown. It's so strange because I only remember this dresser that we had from this dream. So like outside of that, like I remember. Well, no, if that makes sense. What I mean is, like, we had this dresser. This was a real dresser in my bedroom. Uh, I remember my parents, I guess, would have been out, say, in the kitchen area. We didn't live in an overly, big house. It was pretty small, 2-bedroom house, but the probably the length of the hall was only like probably 15 feet to the kitchen, so it wasn't very big. Um, so I remember they would have been out, like, in that area, in the kitchen area, and this was happening in my room, and I was alone. We had bunk beds, so I was on the bottom bunk, and this was happening while I was in my room. So yeah, there was no, like I said, this is it's just an odd dream to remember, but it was always one that I never forgot, which is strange, because it doesn't seem to have much of a. It was a kid. I was a kid. I mean, it could have been from anything. I'm not really sure, but it didn't seem to have much of a meaning, to this day. Like, I don't look back on it and say, yeah, that's what that meant, because it was probably just a manifestation of my fear of that unknown, that bump in the night kind of a thing, that you don't know what it is. And uh, it was pretty much a manifestation of my fear, that I was feeling as a kid. And there was a fair amount of it, but
Yeah, that would
yeah.
make sense. Was there also, just kind of in this earlier period, were there cryptids in, did your grandmother or
Mm.
people talk about cryptids up there, like was there
Um,
Bigfoot, those kinds of things?
no, no, no. We didn't have. No, there was no talk of cryptids here. Not where I lived. I don't know.
It's funny
Not
when
that.
I think of the Bigfoot too, it seems like it came on for me into my consciousness later.
Hmm.
But then, then as we know, the stories have been around a very long time, but I just wasn't aware of them until, later. And
Yeah.
so, mm, but Canada's known for Bigfoots.
Oh yeah, yeah. Well, yeah. Well, not so much in on the east coast of Canada. Ontario, I know there's a lot of uh, there's a lot of talk in Ontario of Bigfoot, and uh, there's even some sea like creatures in different lakes, lake creatures, I guess, that I've heard of.
Ooh.
I think one's I think his name is Ogopogo or something like that.
See,
It's very close to
it's
that, but it's like
the
Nessie.
lake stuff interests me more than like the land stuff. I have
Mm,
such a weird fear of the deep water, especially dark water.
hmm.
And I just it's so hard to get me in it. I mean, that's why I was the best skier around, because I didn't want to let go.
Yeah,
I didn't want to be dangling there in the water. There always
yeah,
feels, and those cold northern waters too. There's just, oh my God.
definitely.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I mean, there's so much undiscovered underwater. I mean, there could be things there that we don't know of. I definitely believe that there's things under there that they keep their distance from us, and but they're there. People see them every now and then. But it's in very. I love that topic, cryptids. It's a very interesting topic. Very
Yeah.
interesting.
Oh, yeah. It's juicy. And the further into it we get, the more exposure it gets, the less, uh, well, the more exposure we get, the more these stories surface, the more the folkloric stuff comes up,
Hmm.
and then the more evidence and stuff that happens. One could say, we're feeding it, and so it's like an egregore or
Mm,
egregore.
yeah.
Uh, but uh, I don't know where it is. So back on winding back to the dreams, though, what's your relationship with the dream world now? Has the landscape changed?
Oh,
Do
big time.
you, yeah, give me an example. Well, give us an example of how you dream now.
Well, because I mean, like those. I had a lot of nightmares for a long time about movies, things that I watched when I was a kid, a young kid. Like Freddy Krueger was another one, uh, uh, and uh, and The Exorcist. So those were like two main things. But once I got older, um, much older actually, because these happened probably to my late 20s. I still had nightmares. But what happened was once I learned, once I took control of my life and started to face the fears that I had um, of a lot of different things, not just of my dreams, but um, uh, and started to, I broke out, and I mean, what I do for a living is I'm a singer songwriter, and I actually, again, coming from a very small town, being a very shy kid, to breaking out on stage, and to be able to do that. I mean, it was a big step for me. It took a lot of time, and but I eventually got there, and I actually have a in Canada. I have a pretty successful career as a singer songwriter. Uh, I mean, I've been doing it full time for the last 7 years. So, um, I mean, I think that uh, just controlling, taking control of that part of my life, and learning what I've learned, just going into, because of the internet now. I mean, just to be able to, because at the time, I mean, I didn't get the internet till I was probably 21 or something like that.
Oh,
So
wow.
yeah, I was late. So I mean, once I started to actually dive into all this stuff and to figure it out and to understand, the fears that I had, and what was causing different things, for me to act certain ways in my life, um, and again with the music to because music is very therapeutic, um, as you know. So um, I mean, music I think had a huge impact on the spiritual side of me. Um, it just opened up the creative gates to just allow the energy to flow, which it it was stagnant for a long time in my body, and I just had to. That was a really great way. I started playing guitar and singing when I was 14, so um, once I found that, I mean that seems it seemed um, to open up a whole new world of creativity and energies and spirituality. I think that eventually led me to where I am today. And actually, there was a while there was I used to call myself the Dream Master for a while because
Oh, nice.
I did notice that in dreams, as this progressed, I mean these things don't happen all at once, as you know, like over time. I I started having because I used to have a lot of nightmares, but once I had a nightmare, I could either wake myself up out of the nightmare really easily, or I can turn. I wasn't technically lucid, but I would switch it on in the dream that I would turn whatever was happening negative. I would become in control, and I would be able to take control of whatever situation I was in and come out of that dream feeling like I was no fear. Like I felt like I was the one in control in the dream. When at the beginning of the dream, it felt like the old regular old fear filled whatever a nightmare. So it would have been like again, say if it was like The Exorcist sitting there staring at you, which is jarring enough because that movie
Hmm.
was friggin' creepy as hell.
Oh, yeah, it still holds
So I
up as
mean,
creepy.
oh my god, so scary. So I mean, um, so like something like that, I was able to uh, gain control over in my dream. Anything that was like coming up against me, I can overpower, which took a while, but finally, the nightmares went away after that, and I've rarely had a nightmare since. Very strange.
And that is a very significant connecting factor there, is that when you were able to move into the dream landscape and at first experience, this out of control, this kind of the fear stuff, and then turn that around,
Mm-hmm.
how this reflected into your outer world.
100%. Yeah,
Yeah.
definitely.
It's
And
significant, and you don't have to be lucid to do this. This stuff can work completely on its own without really much else. It's a well-oiled engine, really.
yeah, and I think it works both ways. It's like it's the power you feel like you're striving for in your physical life, in your day to day, your how empowered you feel from day to day reflects on your dreams and vice versa. If that makes sense. And I felt like as time was going on, I felt so much more confident um, in all aspects of life, um, that was reflecting on my dreams, and I didn't feel like I didn't feel without power anymore. I felt empowered. So I was empowered to take control, and surprisingly, I mean, to where I am right now in my life, it's shocking. It's night and day for me to look at it from where I was to where I am now, and the things that I've manifested in my life are just crazy. And I think that's another side because it's not totally to do with dreams. I think that's another aspect of life that has to do, with the spiritual, the magic side of life that is there, and we all can tap into if we actually look into it and want to do it. But not everybody wants to look at that side of life, and just, but I've loved that side, and magic is a huge part of my life now, and it's a natural magic. It's not like, hocus pocus kind of a stuff. It's or Wicca in a way. I don't, I don't assign to any, you know, set path uh, or anything like that. I kind of take the best of every different angle of magic, and kind of make it work for me. And I mean, I've been doing it for quite some time, and I feel very good about it. Feel confident.
Yeah, I like where you come from a lot, which is why I wanted you on anyway. You've got it's a very natural spiritual connection to the earth,
Mm,
and and wherever that takes one, into higher
yeah.
dimensions of that, and with a really wonderful folkish aspect coming from small town, small northern Canadian town that really instills a lot of good old timey folkish stuff.
Mm.
And which is just my favorite thing. I love it. It's like we have a lot of that in Appalachia here,
Oh,
and
definitely. Yeah.
there's a lot of that
Hmm.
people here can relate to, and so I love that. Where in your dream world also, how has that informed, besides the shift that happened with these nightmares when you started
Hmm.
to get control of all that that sprung into having more confidence in the outer world,
Mm.
which gets you to where you are now, which is, you're doing well. uh how has that informed the muse in you? How does the dream realm and your dream world, with your spiritual connection to the dream world, inform the muse from which you, as an artist in the world, take take inspiration from?
Mm. Well, when I was, let me see, in 2012, I started journaling every day. Not every day, but the dreams that felt important, I'd write them down. Um, and I think that somehow there's a creativity, that comes from a subconscious kind of a place, and to look at that and to focus on dreams. And it's so crazy because sometimes when you look at a dream, um how many people remember their dreams like that happened in 10 years ago? Not too many people, unless I where I write it down. I when I As soon as I read the dream that I had, I remember it. And I think there's something in that brings a certain creativity that allows the past and the present to sort of exist at the same time. It's like it's because it's not the physical world. It's your it's totally it's a definitely metaphysical. So it's in a different place, and the dream world is totally different than obviously than the physical world. But I think there's a lot to be learned in that, and it's hard to put your finger on. It's hard for me to put my finger on exactly how that helped me to create, because like I can't say that I write from dreams or anything like that, because that's not what I do. But dreams are a reflection of my daily life. So whatever happens on any given day, dreams are that's what dreams do. I mean, they're a subconscious answer to any questions you have that you don't even know you have. Sometimes it's dreams are a really strange world. And if I can just make a segue, um, it's symbolism. I mean, symbolism is huge in dreams. Um, and in my life, symbolism is huge. I mean, even as a singer songwriter, I mean, using symbolism um, to write is, that's one of the main things you do. Uh, it's it's a lot of fun to do, to use symbolism in your writing. But in my day to day, symbols are a huge part of my magical life. Uh, I see things all the time that a person would probably just overlook. And for example, I don't know, just give an example, and it's a simple one that people use all the time is repeating numbers. So
Like 33?
30, well, 33, yeah, or like 1111 or something like that. I mean, like things like that. I mean, it's um, I think that's one key. If I can make anybody listening to this right now walk away with anything, is that symbolism is all around us, and if you can tap into it, that can actually open doors to places that you need to go in your life. I mean, I think like oh, I can't. I'm sorry. I'm there's there's just so much in my head that wants to come out, and I don't know which way to go with it. we're,
The
we're
floor
trying
is
to.
yours.
I know we're talking about with dreams, but like dreams are an important part, but it's like there's it's all connected. So it's hard to just focus on dreams, because to me, from my experience, the dreams are the reflection of um, of what happens in my daily life. But there's also dreams that I don't have no idea what the symbolism is between them. And that's another thing. If I can go back to symbolism, is the uh, symbolism in dreams isn't the same for everybody. So it depends on what the dream is, depends how you felt, whatever the dream was. Like, I dreamt about bears so much lately. I have no idea why, but I've been dreaming about bears a lot. And it's not something that I see every day. It's not something, that's the thing. Like, if you see something every day, if I work with bears and I dream about a bear, there's nothing weird about that, you know. So, but if you never see bears, if you didn't watch a movie about bears before you went to bed or a few days before, and you have multiple nights of dreams about bears, I mean, that must mean something, right? So, if uh, so in regards to that symbolism, there's two types for me in dreams, and um, that would be symbolism of certain things that, I'm sorry, I get spaced out sometimes and I lose my train. Hopefully you guys
I'm
bear,
totally
can
following you.
can bear with me for a second.
Yeah,
Yeah,
you're totally
keep
fine.
there.
It's great.
Oh,
Don't
okay,
even
okay,
think,
great.
don't worry about it.
But yes, so there are symbols in dreams that happen, um, that you see that you're familiar with. So if you have a dog and you love your dog and you dream about a dog, you will feel fine about a dog, and there's nothing to really look into that about, in my opinion. Um, but if you dream about a rat and you hate rats, that symbolism. It's like, why would you be dreaming about that? So you can look into symbols and dreams. You can look them up online. A lot of people do that. You can, dream journal, dream dictionaries and stuff like that. But I mean, it's like astrology. Like, it's I can't say astrology is different for every person, but it's so, personal, astrology. So like I can't tell you, because I'm a Scorpio, that's my sun sign, but I mean there's just so much more in your astrology report uh, that defines you. So I can't say you saw a rat in your dreams, so there's somebody in your life that's out to get you. So be careful, because that's not the case. I mean, it's going to be different for everybody. So because you may love rats, so you say, oh, I would love to have a pet rat. So you don't feel the same way, and that's one thing about dreams is emotion. You have to when you the way you feel about a dream when you come out of it it's that's a big part of it. That's half of the symbolism in your dream is how you feel. So dreams are very complicated. And I'm not a professional in explaining dreams, but to me, like, these are just little things that I've picked up uh, that seem to work for me. So it could possibly work for other people. And like I said, I'm a big fan of symbolism in my day to day. So symbolism is all around us, and I just see it all the time. But I mean, a lot of people don't see it because it some of the symbolism that you see um, from your day to day, it just it's hard to put it all together unless you write it down and you can go back and you can read your dreams. So like that's one of the things that I do is, like I said, I journal. I think everybody should have a dream journal, and it does. Sometimes dreams are prophetic, so it does happen every now and then. Um, like I had a dream before my wife got pregnant with my third child that we had a large baby girl, and we found out not too long after um, I had that dream that my wife was pregnant, and she actually did have a baby girl, and she's our biggest of our children. She's the biggest. She's the biggest one. So I mean, like, dreams are just really complicated, and I'm gonna let you talk now because I've been rambling on
That's
for the last
yeah.
10 minutes.
Oh no, I like to we let people talk here. So there, there's a lot here to unpack.
Mm.
First, before we get into like the premonition stuff, I love the dream with having the dream about your daughter before you had her, and we'll come to that later. But when you were talking about the significance of things, of the symbols that stick out, so it's not uncommon for you to dream of bears where you are, especially, and so something that's more uncommon deserves your attention to look further in and see
Hmm.
what's the meaning there, and why has this symbol that would not be in your normal uh
Yeah,
experience,
your day to day.
right,
Yeah.
pop up. And when this happens for you, what is there a theme there? Do they follow some sort of fear or anxiety? Do they take you on a journey that may lead into something, say, in the storytelling of your life, like in a
Mm.
song? When you follow these unusual symbols, where have they generally taken you?
Oh, there's
Just
well,
in
there's
general,
many rabbit holes. I mean, you
Yes.
can I find they um yeah, have you watched the movie it's YouTube series Hellier? Have you watched that yet?
Of course
Yes,
we have.
we love them.
We've had Greg on our show, in fact.
Oh, well, there
Yes.
you go.
Yeah, and we're fans,
So,
of course.
well, that whole synchronicity, you know, following, going on the rabbit hole on topics. And when I watched that show, that series, I was like, 100%. I mean, like, the things that kept happening, and that the synchronicities that just keep coming up. I think there's a code in life that everybody has. It's the part of, like, all of all of life has this code. And I think anybody can, if you look into it enough, you can pick up on the code in your own life, and really decode a lot of of yourself, and what's happening, where you're going, where I it feels like it's almost like you're in the matrix, and it's trying to tell you exactly what to do, or your destiny, or why you're here, but it can only speak to you in symbols. They can't just come out and talk to you. That's what, to me, that's how I see symbolism in life. It's like it's the spirit world speaking to you. Symbols are
Yes.
it's that's how I see
Yeah, well,
symbolism.
the universe doesn't speak English.
No, exactly. There's no, and I mean, that's been known for a lot of throughout history. I mean, Egypt. I mean, symbolism was huge in Egypt, and as far as you go back, I mean, symbolism is massive. And um, I mean, the Freemasons, for example. I mean, they symbolism is huge. I think that's actually, I am a Freemason. I don't know if you
Oh,
knew that, but
excellent.
What
What
yeah,
degree? What?
yeah.
degree are you?
I'm a 32 32nd degree Master Mason,
Oh,
and
excellent. Scottish, right?
yeah, Scottish Rite.
How has that influenced or helped your career?
Yeah. Ashley has not helped my career.
Oh yeah, I imagine these days, especially,
No, it's not near as big as it used to be, in regards to, what can I do for you and stuff like that. But it used to be a lot bigger. Freemasonry is really a fraternal organization right now, and that's it.
Yeah,
you know, it,
it
it,
we
always
don't.
it
We
ca-
don't,
was.
yeah, we don't have any problem with it at all.
No, I
yeah, I
come
mean it.
from a long line of Freemason.
Okay, yeah, well, there's a big stigma on Freemasonry, and how they control the world, and there's Satan worshippers, and there's a lot of
Disinformation.
conspiracy out there, disinformation, and that's actually one of the main reasons why I joined. Um, because one of those things of, well, why not join to learn?
You want to know what's there.
I
Yes.
wanted to know, because I
Yeah.
have no fear. Like I said, I don't fear, runs rampant in Christianity, and the church just makes so many people afraid of things, and they just, if it's not of God, if it's not of the church, then it must be of the devil, and it's very, um it's a not a healthy way to live your life. I
But
mean, it's
in a lot of ways,
very bad.
Freemasonry is just an extension of or an overlay onto the church, the Christianity.
uh yeah, there's a lot of Christian, like, factions of the church, but
Hmm.
you don't have to be of Freemasonry, but you don't have to be a Christian to join. You can be
Right.
of any faith.
You still have to believe
um
in a higher power, though.
yes,
It's
exactly.
an architect.
Yeah, exactly.
It's really, in the end, the majority of Freemasons, it's a fraternal order where they help. There's an outreach as part of it, which we see with the Shriners, and
Mm.
helping people and helping each other. And so there's this aspect that really does happen in the world, and a lot of people, that's where it ends and begins. Of course, there are deeper layers and also higher and other layers, but
Mm.
they do a lot of good, and they've always done a lot of good. And it's always such a service to let the few, to associate the few with the whole, although association is a big deal. And this comes into the idea of, well, I wanted to get into this lucidity in your dreams, and
Mm,
because the idea of architecture, and one of the reasons why I ask about dream architecture is part of the symbolic foundation
hmm.
of reality that we work with, whether we're talking in a dream realm or in this day to day, as you say.
Hmm.
So, within the dream realm, have you experienced a lot of lucidity or even out of body experiences?
As much as I'd like to say yes, because that's honestly uh, something that I've looked into a lot, and I mean, I've read Robert Monroe's books, and I mean, there's lucid dreaming is something I've always wanted to do, and I just never, I have never been able to do it.
You know, not
I'm
yet is a perfectly
not yet.
acceptable example, and
Yeah,
answer to
exactly.
that.
Yeah, not yet. But um, it's so strange because I remember when I was young, my brother told me he had a dream where he was um, over his body and seeing his body in his bed, and and he's not like me at all. Like he wouldn't, he's not spiritual, and he's not into this world of metaphysics and all that stuff, and I'm like, yeah, of course he would have the lucid dream, and he didn't even try. It just happened. But yeah, no, I never had anything like that before, unfortunately. But I'm striving. That's one of my goals. I want to have a lucid. I've had like I have had dreams that you seem like, oh, I'm dreaming. Like you've I've had dreams like that before, but it wasn't. It was never like with the intent of going to sleep to have a dream that I can do whatever I want in my dreams, or to have out of body experiences or something like that. And that hasn't happened for a long time. Like I remember it probably happened when I was a teenager a couple of times, but it wasn't nothing that was I had no intent for that to happen, and I kind of didn't really know what was happening when it happened. So, um, but yeah, those are definitely on my bucket list.
Do you have you had okay, so I just want to get this out of the way. Have you had any near death experiences in your life?
I haven't had any near death experiences, but when I was like that, I can remember. Because the reason why I say that is when I was a baby, um, just after I was born, I still had amniotic fluid on my lungs, and I was blue, like I had lack of oxygen. So I don't know what happened with that. All I know is the story was told to me that my dad found me that way, and the doctors came, took me away, and that was that. So I don't know if that could have opened a doorway somehow
Oh
to
yeah,
the
that's
reason,
interesting. Did
Do,
the
right?
priest perform last rites or anything on you?
I not that I recall. I'm not sure.
do you happen to know what your
I
blood?
wasn't told.
Do you happen to know what your blood type is?
That's AB positive.
Positive. Okay.
Yep.
So I want to get back to the dreaming true and stuff. So you had this dream with you were going to have a big baby girl, and you
Mm.
did end up having a
Yeah.
big baby
Yeah.
girl.
Yeah.
So and this is the stuff that really is my bread and butter, so to speak,
Hmm.
with tying this together, even more so than the lucid stuff, because it is a form of lucidity in the way that you're attached to uh, a timeline where you see how it plays out enough to pull back information that appears to be ahead of you. And
Hmm.
so those stories are fantastic, and this is fantastic. So you must not have even been surprised when you had a baby girl, and that she ended up being the biggest as well.
Yeah. Yeah. Because my first two kids were really petite, and then when she was born, like you could tell, like she's more big boned, and so it was really It's really interesting. But I mean, it's cool because I look back through my dream journal sometimes, and my wife, she's not like into stuff like I am. So like after all these years, I've told so many things to her that she believes now. She doesn't research it, or she doesn't she's not that interested into it, but like she believes now because of the things that I've told her. But like that's one of the things, like I can't, it's hard to believe when you go back and you read it. It's like, what? It's like, that's unbelievable, because we found out she was pregnant, right? So it was bizarre, and it wasn't like a year and a half or 2 years before. It was like months, like probably a couple of months before she found out she was pregnant.
Oh wow.
So yeah, yeah. So
Do, have you had other experiences that were, the folkish term is dreaming true, but the
mm,
premonitions and dreams are coming forth with stuff that played out later, even years later.
yeah, yeah. There was one dream. I don't need to go into the details of the dream, but the weird thing about the dream is that I thought it meant one thing. So I thought it meant that to tell you what I thought it meant. It was that I thought I was going to go like to Nashville, and I was going to take off, and I was going to be the next big thing. But what it actually meant was not that it was meant the opposite, but it it just it played out differently than what the dream was telling me. And it's so strange because after I had the dream, I was like, I bet you that's what that means. But it's that's not how dreams work all the time. Isn't that? I think that's interesting that you may think you know what a dream means by just trying to figure it out yourself, but
Hmm.
that's not the case. A dream
Right.
a dream can be completely different than what you think it is, and you only know later on by looking back at it, if you have it written down. I mean, and you can remember it. So it's the only way to know if a dream is prophetic is if you have uh, you know the insight to write it down, and to you. That's the one thing you could do. You can learn, and you know you can you learn a lot about yourself and where you're going, where you came from, what you were thinking at the time. It's a different world. I mean, once you start once you start taking your dreams seriously, a lot of people don't take them seriously. um, right? So they just think it's something that happens every night, and it's no big deal. um,
Oh yeah, but there are a lot of people that do. And I have personally loved the stories that Dolly Parton tells about her dreams and the songs
mm,
that come forth from but she's old school, she's
yeah,
Appalachia.
she's Appalachian, yeah,
Yeah,
definitely.
I mean,
Mm,
she's old school with all the folkish stuff. And they had a big still, play a big part in her
hmm.
life. And so it's a matter of being open. I think that it's uh it's interesting to see. So have you, so in this vein also, with with stuff going on in the dream world, have you had experiences with loved ones that have passed on? Were you able to see someone that passed on before they passed on, or shortly after, or
No,
even
n-
later?
n- no, but I've now that you just asked that, I remembered really powerful dream. um, my
Oh,
father
if you
passed
may
away.
share. Oh,
uh,
your father's
yeah,
passed away.
yeah, he passed away, oh geez, probably I think it's 6 years now, but this wasn't actually that long ago. And it was just to explain the dream, just for your audience to give you an idea, and for you. um, I was singing a song, and my father was there, and he had a smile on his face, and he started to sing along with the song, and at the end of the song, it was like it was nice. It was like it was a nice song. It was just like I don't know. It was just a nice melody, calm, loving song, and he was singing along with me at the end of the song, and he hugged me, and and he was singing along with me at the end of there was no music or anything. It was just like we were just hanging out, and we were just having a bit of fun. He was smiling, and even now when I think about it, it's it's and try and talk about it, it's emotional, and it's honestly one of the, and I woke up, obviously I was crying, and it was uh it just felt really real. The emotion in this dream felt really real, and that doesn't happen to me very often. I know I'm in touch with that side, but um for my dad, like, I'm with for me and death, how I see death is it's it's something to be celebrated just as much as as anything, because you celebrate their life. And I don't see death as being a real negative thing. It's a transition. I look forward to the day when I pass on, to see what's in the next world, and it happens to everybody.
Oh
So
yeah, yeah.
it's yeah. So death is not a it's not a scary place for me. It, that's where I live. so
Yeah.
um so like for this just felt that this dream was just so powerful. And again, it was probably only like 8 months ago, and it's I don't I don't hang on to my father's death, or you know I don't think about him all the time. And I mean, I love my dad, but I mean, we had our issues too. And uh I mean, it's we were close, but not so close. Like, we weren't that close. So um so like, to dream this, it felt real. It felt really real, as if he was here. um and that was a special dream, very special dream. And
Was
uh,
that the first one you've had of him since he passed all those years ago?
it wasn't, no, it wasn't the first. It wasn't the first, but no, I had dreams of him after, but not like that. I mean, it was more like a day-to-day kind of a dream, as if we were just shooting the shit or whatever. It was nothing like that. There wasn't a whole lot of emotion attached to it. It felt good, like, if it was nice to see him and stuff like that, but it was never like that. That was, to me, I think he visited me in that dream.
Yeah.
Yeah, because
Yeah.
that was very powerful. And every time I talk about that after, I always get choked up, and that doesn't happen to me very often.
Yeah, I could
Um,
feel it off you. It gave me the chills,
yeah,
actually.
yeah, yeah, yeah,
It sounded to
yeah.
me like he was trying to let you know he approved or he's proud of you.
Something, it was something.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. Ugh, I get the cold chills. I get the
I know.
goosebumps. Yeah, but that was really cool. That was a gift. Honestly, that was such a gift to have that dream.
It's a good type of hard nipples though. It's not
Yeah,
cr-
exactly.
it's not that creepy chills.
No, oh yeah,
No.
it's definitely a
Yeah.
warm you. It's a warming there's something more here kind of chills, that
Oh,
where
for
it's
sure.
real. This is really real kind of
Yeah.
experience.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
Definitely.
I
Because, like,
like your perspective on that too, with well, on death,
mhm.
that it's not a creepy scary experience. I mean, you come out of your language around it and speaking of it through this dream experience with your father uh, is actually rather beautiful.
Thank you. But yeah, yeah, no, yeah, it's death is such a it's a it's been taught to us to fear death. Death and that's the biggest thing in life. If you can get past your fear of death, everything else is easy. Because that's what holds us back. I mean, that's what holds everybody back most of the time is the fear of dying. Um, um, so I mean,
Don't you
yeah,
find
that
that
that's a big
funny
thing.
though?
Yeah,
That actually
yeah,
that it holds us back. You would think the opposite, right? I mean, it would seem like, well, we're gonna die, so why hold back? And yet,
mm,
it does have that effect, like the opposite effect on people. It's very mysterious.
yeah. And I think, and it comes down to culture too. I mean, different cultures, a lot of cultures celebrate death. Um, I can't put my finger on a lot right now, but like the Norse culture, I mean, they really send off their dead with a great celebration. Like, so like anytime you celebrate somebody's death, I mean, in a culture, I mean, that's a positive thing. I mean, that's the way it should be. But I mean, I don't want to. I hate to point fingers, but I mean, it's just the reality of it that Christianity just makes death seem scary. I mean, it's either you're going to go to heaven or you're going to go to hell, and people don't want to go to hell, and that's basically why they're scared of death, because most people are know deep inside that they haven't lived a good enough life to say that they can go to heaven. Who can?
Yeah.
If who can say that they've lived a good enough life to go to heaven? You can't, and
It's fun.
that's a big part of it, right?
Well, this is one of the things that I've come to, and you know this about me. I'm not Christian, and
Mm.
but I'm not anti-Christian either. I
No,
feel,
me too. Yeah.
and I feel that it's the church really that has turned that's made in modern day the idea of Christianity so sour because
Mm,
there's this intermediary between you and the spiritual experience, and there doesn't need to be. And of course, the more I've been diving into the some Gnostic Christian stuff, which I find
hmm
absolutely juicy. The more that language is there, the more that message is actually there.
Yeah, 100%.
And so it's just been so co-opted by the religion, by the business of
Mm.
religion, right?
Well, I
It's
mean, fear is what controls. So, I mean, I mean, there's no doubt in saying that the Christianity, more so the Roman Catholic Church, has been trying to control as much as they can for as long as they can. I mean, like, they've been like what they've done to the pagan religions. I mean,
right, right.
the they've persecuted so many different cultures, and just it's sad to see all that, and it was all for control. It's fear. It's fear based culture, unfortunately, and it's sad because it holds a lot of people back from from
It makes them wear
really
masks in
experiencing.
the store and shit.
Yeah, exactly.
But look at how the people
Exactly.
over different cultures that encountered Catholicism. And so, see, I'm one of these people that I I don't have I don't have a hang up here.
Mm,
So it when I look at, as an outsider, when I look at the Catholic Church, I see Santeria. I
mm,
see how Africans brought in their stuff into it you know, with some of the subculture within the Catholic Church. Uh, I see all the pagan stuff that it's just filled with pagan stuff,
mm.
and of course the control grid is there, and that's what I'm talking about. But
Yeah.
because when they came in, they had to maintain the message with the local indigenous people they were overcoming, essentially trying to
Hmm.
control, those people got a chance to actually braid in their native beliefs, and all these little subsets came in, and so that's all there. And so for someone like me that's like a journeyman,
Hmm.
essentially, I
Yeah.
go in, I'm like, oh wow, look, the goddess lives here, she's here. And the magic of the smoke and the fire and the sacred sacrament, and there's meditation here, there's meditation through music. There's so much there that
Mm.
is, I don't like seeing the baby thrown out with the bathwater,
No, no, I agree. I agree. No, there's 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 so much to be taken from every culture. Um, there's there's every culture's got the negative side, but there's a lot of beauty and a lot of good that could be taken out of every culture, every religion, and you're 100% right. I'm the same. I don't throw. I'm not a Christian or a Catholic, but it doesn't mean I don't like the fact that there are Christians and Catholics and that they shouldn't do believe that. I mean,
yeah,
if that's what they want to do, that's fine for them,
yeah,
100%. Like you got to do what you got to do. I mean, we're all on a different path, and whatever helps you, you know, be a good person and to become spiritual and do your thing. I mean, it's everyone's different, so
yeah.
uh, not everybody can walk the path that we're on. It's a
Well, this is
different
definitely
world, right?
one of the
Yeah.
things I deeply respect with you, and I wouldn't have known had we not, developed a rapport and
Mm.
start talking about these things, because you just never know where someone is, and especially in kind of where you're coming from in your day to day.
Mm.
It's very special to see open minds in the world that are not throwing out, you don't badmouth all that.
No,
And
no,
I respect that highly.
no,
i
thank
want
you.
to i want to dig deeper into the idea of dreaming with you,
Mm.
if you will.
I'm
S-
sure.
so with the idea, so when we look at, and this is most Nox Mente, this is some of our meat here, with the idea of the dream space, when we're in it and experiencing the dream space, and especially something that's very emotionally tinged, like this wonderful dream with your father,
Hmm.
uh, where it takes on a new where the room's full, right? Where
Yeah.
there's more going on. Uh, what separates that experience from something, say, in your day to day life where you're having a deeply emotional experience? Really, what's the difference?
um, what's the difference in how you feel? You mean?
What makes one thing more real over the other?
Mm. I think it's. Oh, that's a really hard question. It depends on how real your dreams feel. Um, and the thing about dreams, for me, I'm not sure how everybody, you can't live in somebody else's head while they're dreaming. So who knows how we all experience dreams because it could be all different. It's like taste, right? Or smell. But um, i- i- dreams, I don't know. Like I said, it comes down to consciousness for me. If you're conscious to be able to, and that's a thing. I mean, and who's to say consciousness is even real? So, I mean, if that's what makes reality real, being conscious, then a tree is not real. How conscious is a tree? I mean, they probably do have a level of consciousness, but but I mean, not as much as we do. So I think consciousness makes a lot of that. I mean, consciousness to make decisions, uh, to have some sort of control over your dream, or where it's going in regards. And to me, a lot of my dreams aren't dreams that I can. I'm not really a part of the dream. It's kind of happening, and I'm kind of witnessing it. And that's the difference between reality and the dream. Because in this life, I can choose. In reality, in your day to day, you can actually choose what you want to do and how it plays out. But in dreams, it doesn't work that way. It's kind of shows you what it's a subconscious image of your emotion, I guess, and your spirit at the time. Um, it's kind of a snapshot. And you know what? What I have learned. Did you want to comment on that before I go on?
Yeah,
Because I can go
actually,
on to something different.
I think that's a very significant point to make, and is the consciousness aspect of how one perceives the dream space as opposed to the perception of the reality space.
Mm,
And in your definition of your day-to-day reality is where you feel you have more control.
mhm.
Did I hear that correctly?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah,
Yeah. And so, but also you're not one, you don't lucid dream. You do. I'm
yeah.
positive you do. You just don't have recall of it. And so that's where when one starts getting into the lucid dreams,
Mm.
all that starts to overlap. But that's another rabbit hole. So where were you going to springboard from there?
Um. Oh, I kind of lost my train. What was I going to say?
So you're talking about the
uh,
control and let's see. Well, the
He was
control
um.
talking
part.
about what the dreamscape realm is.
Yeah, I know where I was. I just can't remember where I was going to go. Okay, that's fine. Let's just. It'll come back to me. It will come back to me in a few minutes. But
So, okay, so moving forward with
yeah.
this, is your father the only person you've experienced in the dreamscape that has? So, I don't know much about your personal life, so I don't know
Hmm.
how many deaths you've experienced. Uh,
Well, his would have been the biggest the closest person to have ever passed. That
mhm.
yeah,
Yeah, well, it is your father. That's like right in that's like immediate family.
yeah, exactly, yeah,
It's a big
yeah,
deal. Even people who don't have good relationships with their parents, their other parental units, as some people like to say, it's still a big deal.
yeah.
So, what about uh in your dream experience, have you experienced entities or things within the dream realm that felt like or appear to you to be ghosts or demons or ETs or other, but they don't
What's the
feel like they're
difference?
part of what they don't
Yeah.
have to be.
Yeah.
That's why I'm throwing out all the different symbols. But they're not. But
No.
the point here is that don't feel like they're part of you or you're unconscious.
Yeah. Um. I like no. I feel like there's nothing that stands out besides like that one when I was a kid. That dream about the hands that were talking from underneath the dresser in my bedroom. Like that felt like it was a different entity. Like, but outside of that, I don't. I haven't really dreamed. The only thing that really that frightened me would have been like things from movies or things that I've seen that I'm just repurposing in my head.
When you
So
say,
it's
sorry,
yeah. Go ahead.
no, when you say different entity, do you mean like external consciousness to your own, like not part of you, or
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah, it felt like it was. And like I said, the weird thing was, it was like just like you guys. It was like a person, like not like a person, but like a separate entity from me completely. So like whatever this thing was speaking to me with the green and red striped hands, it was not. It just didn't feel like anything that I witnessed before. So it was kind of a new thing. You know, like, because normally in dreams you dream about things that you've either seen before, or like, and like that's like the question you ask, like, have you seen a ghost in a dream, or you know, an alien or anything like that. I mean, there's nothing that I've dreamt about that I can think of that I haven't kind of, you know, about things that you've never ever seen before. You know, do you understand what I'm saying?
Oh,
Yeah,
absolutely.
absolutely.
Yeah, yeah. So that's the only kind of, it's really the only dream that kind of that I can mention that happened. That this this uh, this being speaking to me, uh, that I don't even know what. And the thing of it is, this dream is like, it's, I don't even think it was talking to me. I think it was just talking. Like, that's the weird thing. It wasn't even speaking to me. It was speaking, and it wasn't. I don't think it was English. It was just a different. I don't know what it was saying, but uh and to me, when like this dream, I don't know what it means to you guys, but to me, like, it doesn't feel like this dream meant anything. It's just something that that I feels to me like it's just something that I dreamt when I was a kid, and I just, I don't know. Maybe it has some kind of meaning. I've never been able to pick the bones out of that one. I don't know.
Yeah,
But yeah.
it's all right for them to just stand out and be, you know, it's just a
Odd.
dream
An
somewhere,
oddity.
and you know that.
Mm,
But it's interesting when we start putting it into context of conversations like these, where we are parsing out, you know, dream symbols. I'm
mm,
wondering, with everything, so with the world outside us
mhm.
today, and this last bit of time where everyone's been kind of on lockdown and all the crazy stuff that's going on in the collective, has this affected your dream life at all?
Yeah, it's been a little more chaotic. Um, so dreams that, uh, I mean, nothing that's major to really stand out, but like dreams that just seem to be all over the place. So there's no structure to them, and they just seem like nothing really connects. Like, some dreams, they flow nicely and they all make sense and there's a story to it. But it's like, it seems like lately I've been having dreams that are kind of all over the place, and they they don't really, you know, they don't really connect at all. So one thing that I remember, that I've dreamt of lately is water. And I've had many dreams of water in the past, but of water coming up to my house and actually being around. It was almost as if it was a flooding. It was flooded, but it was because I live right next to the ocean, so it was like the tide came in. The tide was extra high, and it came right up to my house, and it was. I felt safe because, but it was still up to say, like, washing up against my house, which would never happen normally. So, as you know, in dreams, water usually means emotions. So,
Did it,
uh,
what did the water have a quality to it? Was it dark water? Was it like the
no,
water that's out there and that
it
is
was
really out there?
that was no, it was pretty. It was just uh, a natural wild water,
Yeah.
like just a wave. It was nothing. It wasn't nothing crazy, like crazy high about it. Like, it wasn't high waves. It wasn't like a tsunami. It was. It just felt like the tide was super high, and it was like, wow. Uh, yeah, I have a basement in my house, so I didn't even think like, well, the basement could be flooding, or like, it just felt like I was like, wow, holy, look how high that water is. Like, oh, I,
Interesting.
Yeah, I didn't feel overcome by it. I didn't feel like it was a negative thing. It was just something I was observing.
What about, and so I know that for y'all up in Canada, you had that mass shooting, and I'm sorry to hear that.
Yeah, yeah.
Uh, did has any of that found its way into your unconscious via your dreams? Has it affected your dream world at all?
Not that I can tell. I'm pretty for me. Don't I don't fear of I don't have a lot of fear over things. My day to day, I think I really let things just happen as they will. And I know this event was terrible. And I don't know if this is a something from like a coping mechanism from when I was a kid or what, but I tend to deal with um, negative events really well. Um, it's almost like a switch goes on, and I go into a not a survival mode, but like a commando kind of a mentality. So when things negative happen in the world or in my personal life, I feel like uh, my um, instinct is to run towards it, not to run away from it. So uh, when things happen like that, it doesn't usually affect me on a level that I'm always thinking about it, or things that that it dwells on my mind enough that I would dream about it. And nothing is really it hasn't affected me on that level. As bad as it is incredibly terrible. And not to say it's not a bad thing. It's just it seems like I reserve reacting to when it's actually physically happening to me or someone that's close enough to me to make an impact on my life.
Mm.
That's when I seem to have more of a emotional intense reaction, and that would happen to cause dreams about it, things like that.
Well, you have a very nice view on the idea of death and what happens as well. You don't come from a place of fear with it, and so
Mm,
that I think also informs some of that, because that event in the end represents a lot of death, right?
yes. Hmm.
And you already, you have a very healthy view of death. So even though that's traumatic and those people
Mm,
did die traumatically, uh it's still not, y-
yeah. I
there's
thought
not a fear factor there in that
exactly,
sense.
exactly. Yeah, yeah. That makes sense. It's not something that I would, you know, think about. Well, I hope that doesn't happen here, or it's not something that I would. It's although it could happen. There's so many things that could happen any day, and
Right.
uh, and I think I grew up because, like I said, my parents really worried a lot about everything when I was a kid, and uh,
There's a,
warning me about so much, and I think that might have something to do with why I strived so hard to not worry about things and to just kind of let life happen and to deal with things when they happen.
do
It
you?
might be. Go
Sorry.
ahead.
No, I'm
Oh,
sorry.
oh, you go ahead.
I was gonna ask. Do you know who Hunter S. Thompson is?
Oh, geez. I know the name. I
He
can't.
he's a
Go ahead.
writer. He's a dead writer,
Okay.
the father of gonzo journalism. But he once said, "There's no such thing as paranoia. Your worst fears can come true at any moment."
Yeah.
Kind of
Yeah. Yeah.
mirrors what you were saying. That's why.
Yep. So true. Yep.
Fear
Yeah.
and
Good.
Loathing in Las Vegas is one of,
Oh
one of
yeah,
the one of
Oh, okay.
seminal
the
Yes.
Johnny Depp.
Exactly.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. Totally. Okay. There you go. Yeah.
seminal work.
Yeah. Yeah.
Did
Yeah. I
were
know
are your parents immigrants? How long have you been in
that.
your kin? How long have your people been in Canada?
Oh, for a while, for I'd say a couple of 100 years. Nothing crazy, I guess. But like my parents weren't immigrants directly. Say probably 300 years, maybe. But my father's side came from France, so my mother's side came from, I believe, Scotland
Classic.
or Ireland. Yeah.
Well, 300 years is a big deal out, in America because that's getting back to kind of the founding years
Revolution.
here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm,
And so that's a long time here. So, but I always wonder how, so you're long time seated, essentially. I mean, you're Canadian through and through.
yeah, I have Aboriginal blood as well.
Yeah.
So that
Yeah. I would expect so.
mm,
So I wonder, and I also wonder if that, I'm wondering what connects you. You have this, you've called it this paganish side to you that
mm,
connects you to the natural world and the natural folkish world. And that was kind of one of those things I was wondering, and it's been there since you were little, as we've understood here.
mm.
And so I was wondering if it had a lot to do with the indigenous, uh the maybe the indigenous blood in you. But then
It
you
could.
mentioned the Scottish stuff, and I've got I've got a whole strain of Scottish in me, and I think a lot of that really, it's my favorite strain. I have some
Mm.
Norwegian too, but
It's an
I
Andromeda
vibe the
strain.
most. The Scottish stuff is where I really feel such a magical
Oh,
connection
it's
to all that.
yes, such a beautiful culture.
Oh, well,
Oh,
the
such a
the
beautiful culture.
history, all there's so much magic there, and also rebel. There's a lot of rebel
Yeah,
gene with the
yeah,
Scots,
yeah.
and so for me, all that heavy. Every time I get in touch with the littles and the wees and
Mm.
nature, I feel like it comes almost right out of that the Baines, and because that's what their last name is.
Okay.
So, but where do you, when you're out in nature, when you're pulling in some of this really great folklorish stuff that you've
Mm.
put on your channel, uh does it where does it hail from?
It's I've been researching for a long time of a lot of different things. I mean, it's not something that it's technically like from my roots or things that I've been taught. It seems to me that just by researching different cultures over time, that there's certain ones that just seem to resonate with me more so than anything else. And um, that's a couple of the couple of the ones that resonated the most is as of right now anyway, is the Norse culture and the Celts, the Celtic culture. Um, so with the fairy folk and the good folk and all those good, it just makes, to me, in my mind, it makes so much sense. I mean, it connects so many of the dots in other religions and cultures, uh, like why, because like there's fairy folk can be uh very bad, like if and
Oh
like
yes,
yeah,
oh
right, they
yes.
can and it makes sense to why that would be considered a demon or a or an evil spirit from one culture, right? So and to me, when I think about these elemental spirits or um, these fairies or wee folk, I mean, it's a nature. It's all down to nature, right? So it's the spirit side of nature that we can't see, and it's very much like animal. So like the you wonder, people always wonder, like, like, oh, I felt like I was being attacked by an evil entity or something like that. And and at the end of the day, I mean, any kind of anything you read on demons or negative entities or anything like that, I mean, they act very territorial, just like an animal, and they can't, not all of them, because there's some good, just calm uh, spirits. Not to offend any of the spirits that are listening tonight, but um, but the ones that are, like, known to be evil feel very animalistic, and the story, like the way people explain them, are it's like as if you were being attacked by a wolf or any kind of creature that you wandered into their territory and you cornered them, right? And I really get that vibe from uh, from a lot of the stories that people tell in regards to ghosts and evil spirits and things like that. Like that's how I kind of see it. It's like it feels to me like it's more of it's an elemental um, spirit that you probably pissed off somehow because you were in the wrong place at the wrong time. And I mean, there's the thing of it is like people build houses. You might build houses in a city or a town, but I mean, these places were once, obviously open areas of farmland or beautiful, forest, and who knows what were there before that you're taking their territory.
Yes.
So there's and the energies of the world and the ley lines and all these different things. There's a lot of different angles to it that you can look at, but that could cause spirit activity and different things like that. But uh, I mean, I don't know. I just get a feeling of to give everything its respect. Everything deserves respect, um, and, and deserves to be understood, in
Yeah.
my opinion. Um,
Spirit of place is a very big deal that so many people overlook.
mm, yeah, definitely. And I haven't really witnessed firsthand a lot of big energy. I haven't done a lot of world travel, but I really, really want to go to certain places. Like Egypt has always fascinated me, but to go to, I mean, there's a lot of places in Ireland and Scotland
Oh, yeah.
that have the standing stones and all these places that really people say that they when they go to these places you can feel it in the air and you can feel the energy, right? Like, and that is something. I mean, if you can feel something and it's not all in your head, it's actual, it's an energy that's there, and that's real. It's so it's like these places are very real and they exist, and we don't understand them. I mean, there's very little known about this. It's probably more known about it that we're being told. I'd say
Yes,
that
of
the
course.
government has some kind of an idea of
Hmm.
these areas and what they can do in regards to energies and different things. Like, because I mean, there's a lot more out there that we're told about. So that's just speculation, but I mean, there's a lot of areas that have a lot of power. Me personally, like I said, I haven't really witnessed it, and I've seen like just it's smaller things, but not big areas that you can feel in a whole area, like really overtake you with energy. But it's more of an individual thing, and with me, you know, uh, just small steps and small things that just taking the time to take notice of uh, of little things that's happening around you. I think that's a big thing.
The subtle there's a reason why the old language around this used to be called, used to be the subtle world around you.
Mm,
And I grew up hearing that from,
okay.
even though I come from, I've got the Scottish line, the Baines,
Hmm.
uh which was my mother's maiden name. I was raised by Irish people in an Irish household,
Hmm.
and they always spoke in terms of like the subtle, like my grandma Macaulay always spoke in terms of the subtle world, but she did it
Interesting.
in her way, and I
Hmm.
think it wasn't overt, it wasn't it, I mean, she'd be deeply offended if I think you ascribed anything magical to her. Uh,
Huh.
I think, I don't know. She was such a strange woman, uh, but the subtle energies and the subtle world around us, the subtleties we experience
Yes.
in nature, these are a big deal. This is
Yep.
a big deal, and to get in touch with that is very special, and that can unfold and develop.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
it leads to a question that we had for you. Um, what what inspired the name Black Stag?
Uh, well, it's well, white stag. The white stag is well known as the stag is a symbol of spirituality. It's masculinity, but it's also femininity at the same time. It's the stag is to me is a perfect mix of both, and it's an so as for black, for me personally, I chose black because it's more like the black sheep kind of an idea. So it's a um, it's standing apart from everyone else, um, but still having that that symbolism of of both worlds, the spirit world and the physical world, but the masculine and the feminine world, which I think the is a big part of who I am, because of creativity. I mean, it's just there's just so many sides to the balance of that, right? If you look at my page, I mean, it's a black stag on a white background, so it's black and white. It's just the duality of life, and um, there's just there's so many different sides to that symbolism. But the stag, it's a well-known um symbol of uh, spirituality, and it's the king. It was really the king of the forest, um, to the Aboriginal tribes, and uh, yeah. So there's a few layers of symbology there in the black stag.
Yeah,
But
I
it just
understand it.
resonated. Yeah,
Yeah,
it resonated with me. So that's what I decided to go with.
yeah. I think that was it was a question that came through from Jerry, I guess, through the chat, and so I perfectly
No, it was my
understand.
question.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah, I perfectly understand the symbolism. Makes complete sense to me. And the stag's a big deal in it's a form of the god,
Mm,
and it's the masculine principle in nature, and
yeah.
it's there. And I like the idea of the duality. There's the white stag, the black stag. They
Yeah.
have their seasons,
Yeah.
and yeah, it's good. It's juicy, and also mysterious and beautiful.
Well, thank you. And you know what? I kind of only after I chose the name, I was looking into different things too. And I looked, and there's a thing I didn't realize it, but there's a thing called a dark horse. Have you ever heard of the term dark horse in regards to somebody who um, comes up at the last minute
Hmm.
to to uh, to be the front runner.
Yes.
I
Yes.
never, and I didn't really, I didn't, I didn't know what that meant until after. And so it kind of has that dark horse kind of a feel too. But uh, what I did look into, what was I looking into because of that was the astrology, because the I believe it's Sun square Saturn. No,
Hmm.
no, it's not Sun square Saturn. There's a square that just happened to Saturn that hadn't happened in Aquarius since 1991, and um, at that same time, it was in October of 1991, and um, as that happened, the perfect storm happened. Remember that movie, The Perfect Storm?
Yes.
The perfect storm, and also Bill Clinton um, decided to run for the presidency, and he was the dark horse at the time, and that was the last time that happened in Aquarius was 1991. So I was this kind of has to that's what I was looking into, because I was this comes back to the astrology is another thing that I look into a lot, and it has a effect on it's a lot of symbolism in astrology that it's very deep and very precise, and it works on cycles. And because of what's going on right now, it's kind of a perfect storm of what's happening now in regards to the financial, the with the COVID-19, and it's a perfect storm of events that's happening, and there's a dark or what the dark horse is yet to be revealed, but they're saying that somebody could run against Donald Trump uh, for the that still that hasn't been announced yet, that Joe Biden is kind of they're kind of holding the ground so they can until they reveal this person, but it's getting kind of late now, so I don't know what's going to happen there, but there may be a dark horse yet that's yet to be revealed.
Yeah, well, we will learn that at the convention.
Yes. And we'll see how that plays out. And that's a nice place to see if there are any questions from the chat here and move into wrapping the show.
I believe they've all been answered. I think I was trying to figure out what that square was. I think it's square Pluto, Saturn square Pluto.
Oh, okay, there you go. Sorry about that. I hadn't looked it up like recently. It was probably like a week and a half ago, so I just forgot what the
No,
aspect was there.
I had no
But
idea what
yeah,
it was. So
yeah,
great. Yeah, I think we
yeah.
answered all the questions in chat. So it's been really awesome talking to you. Do you have anything you want to talk about, like your own website or anything you want to plug? Or
I'm right now. I mean, I'm still doing the singer-songwriter thing, and I'm not ready for those two worlds to collide with my Black Stag Shaman
don't
thing
cross the
yet.
streams, dude. Don't
Yeah,
cross
yeah,
those
yeah.
streams.
We totally understand.
So I'm on YouTube, and I kind of put out little insights, little videos here and there. So you can just check me out on Black Stag Shaman on YouTube and on my Instagram. I also post a bunch of cool, you know, pagan stuff and nature and
Yes.
spiritual and different insights that come up every now and then. So you can check me out on there too.
I've enjoyed seeing this side of you. Of course, I know who you are. Yeah, and I'm quite honored. We are quite honored to have you here and have had
Yes.
such a candid
Oh, thank you.
conversation. This has been very, very enjoyable,
Yeah.
and I do thank you
Yes.
for
Thank
Oh,
you.
thank
coming
you
and
for having me.
chatting with
Honestly, like
us.
this is a milestone for me. I haven't done anything like this before. Um, I've done many different forms of media, and this is the first time I've ever done something along this line. And it's a huge part of who I am. This is like it's really almost all of who I am.
Yes,
So and I very rarely get to talk about things like this, and um, it feels really good, and I really enjoy it. And anytime you have any topics that you want to have me on, I'd love to come back and talk about different things. I have a wealth of knowledge in my brain that things I've been researching for a long time. So experience, and so if you ever need me, I'll come back if you want me.
Thank you so
Absolutely.
much.
Thanks so much. And thanks everyone for listening. Next week we have an obelisk with the Brothers of the Serpent podcast hosts. That should be interesting.
I'm not familiar with that podcast, Jared.
I'll tell you about it after the show.
I'll binge it. It's a new one for me.
It's a couple of guys. I think they're in Kentucky, Tennessee, up there. Maybe Indiana. I don't know. Maybe Michigan.
Okay.
They're north of me. I know that. But they have a podcast, and they're on Grimerica a lot. Or they've been on Grimerica, and they've made a name for themselves. So they're conspiracy guys, and we're going to talk about conspiracy.
Okay, well, that'll be fun.
It'll be a blast. So thanks, everyone, for listening. We will see you next week. And be sure to check
thank
out
you, everyone out there.
Go ahead and subscribe to the Black Stag Shaman's YouTube channel. Links are all in the description and the show notes. And we'll talk to you next week. Bye-bye.